Have you ever had that feeling that the wealthy are just playing a totally different game when it comes to money? Well, it turns out they are. They're not just using a different set of rules, they're literally running on a different operating system. So today, we're going to decode that system and figure out how they really use money. And this, right here, this is the fundamental shift. For most people, a dollar is just a coupon you spend. But for the wealthy, it's an employee, a little tiny worker that you can send out into the world to recruit even more workers. You see, the real difference isn't the amount of money they have, it's the mindset behind every single dollar. All right, so the first pillar of this operating system is a pretty radical idea for most of us. Stop chasing a high salary. We're all taught to climb that corporate ladder, get that bigger paycheck, right? But that's actually one of the slowest, most inefficient paths to building any real wealth.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. On one side, you've got earned income. It's totally linear, you trade your time for money, it gets taxed to death, and the second you stop working, the money stops coming in. But on the other side, you've got asset growth. That's exponential, your money is working for you 24/7, it's way more tax-friendly, and it literally builds your wealth while you sleep.
And that's really the crucial point here. It's about shifting from a labor mindset to an owner mindset. Look, you don't have to go out and start the next Google. Just buying a single share of an index fund means you own a tiny little piece of the engine. You've just gone from being a cog in the machine to owning a piece of the machine itself. Okay, so this next idea, it tends to make people a little uncomfortable. We're taught from day one that debt is bad. It's a sign you're failing with money. And look, when it comes to things like credit card debt, that is absolutely true. But the wealthy see it differently. For them, debt can be an incredibly powerful weapon. Let's break this down because there are really two faces of debt. You've got consumer debt, which just holds you back. Think about putting a new TV on a credit card. It loses value the second you buy it, and the interest is just a pure cost. But then you have strategic debt. That's totally different. It's when you borrow money to buy an asset, like a rental property, where the income from that asset actually pays the interest for you. It's not a weight from your past, it's a weapon for your future. So, what's the engine that makes strategic debt work? It's a concept called arbitrage, and it perfectly illustrates the game they're playing. Think about it. If you can borrow money from a bank at, say, 5%, and then you invest that same money into an asset that gives you a 10% return, you've just made a 5% profit on money that wasn't even yours to begin with. This is how the rich scale their wealth so incredibly fast. Now get ready for what really feels like an insider secret, because honestly it is. This playbook explains how the ultra-wealthy can live these enormous lifestyles while paying very, very little in taxes compared to their actual net worth. It's this multi-generational strategy, and it's known as buy, borrow, die. So here's how this three-step cycle actually works. First, you buy assets that go up in value over time, like stocks or real estate. Then, and this is the genius part, instead of selling them and getting hit with a massive tax bill, you borrow against them at a really low interest rate to fund your lifestyle. Finally, when you die, your heirs inherit those assets with what's called a stepped-up basis, which effectively wipes the slate clean on those capital gains, allowing the entire cycle to just start all over again. And this right here is the absolute key to the whole thing. The entire strategy works because a loan is not considered taxable income. So while most of us are out here working for a paycheck that gets taxed before we even see it, the wealthy are using their growing assets as collateral to fund their lives with untaxed loans. They are playing by a completely different set of financial rules. Okay, so the final piece of this puzzle is a concept called velocity. You see, money sitting in a savings account isn't just sleeping. It's actively losing its value to inflation every single day. The wealthy understand that your capital has to always be in motion. So just think for a second about what money is actually used for. For many in the middle class, it's used to buy depreciating luxuries. You know, the new car, the latest phone. But for the wealthy, they use money to buy back their most precious, non-renewable resource, their time. They delegate all the low-value tasks so they can focus their energy on high-value opportunities that create even more wealth. I love this analogy because it's so perfect. Money that's just sitting still has zero power. It's only when it's flowing, when it's moving through a circuit, that it can actually do work and generate more energy. The entire goal is to build a financial circuit for your own capital to flow through. So, what does that circuit look like in the real world? Well, think of it like a relay race for your money. The profits from your stocks become the seed money for a new business.
The cash flow from that business then buys a rental property. Then you borrow against that property's equity to buy even more stocks. See? The money never stops moving, never stops compounding, and never stops working for you.
You know, when you boil it all down, it comes to this. These principles, they aren't about being greedy. They're about engineering freedom. The wealthy buy their freedom first. The luxury is just a nice side effect. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what are you buying with your next dollar?